Under the television lights gleaming beneath the mahogany panels of Hart Senate Office Building Room 216, a drama was unfolding. It was a cold January afternoon, and Washington's political theater was about to witness one of its most unexpected performances. When Kash Patel walked in with confident strides in his dark suit, no one could have predicted that this hearing would become a turning point in modern American politics. The 44-year-old FBI director nominee had weathered partisan attacks before. He was prepared for Democratic criticism. His legal team had polished counterarguments, assessed every possible scenario. But today would be different. Today, he would walk into his own party's line of fire. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse sat across the room, preparing his case like a prosecutor. Rhode Island senior senator, a former deputy attorney general, had participated in countless high-profile hearings. But this time, his ammunition was unusual. For manila folders sat on his desk, each carefully labeled, each bearing a name, Barr, Bolton, Haspel, and a deputy national security advisor. This was no coincidence. This was a systematic demolition plan. The calm before the storm. The hearing began with routine questions. Budget priorities, national security threats. Standard questions about the FBI's future. Patel articulated his talking points fluently, his voice calm, his posture relaxed, easily answering questions from Republican allies. Everything was under control before the television cameras. Experienced Senate observers, however, noticed something different. There was an unusual methodology in Whitehouse's preparation. The arrangement of folders, the sequence of questions, the precision of timing, all heralded something. When the clock struck exactly 2:47 p.m., the atmosphere shifted. Mr. Patel, Whitehouse began. His voice carried the authority of someone who had fought organized crime for years. I want to discuss your qualifications, but not based on Democratic criticism. I want to discuss them based on assessments made by your own Republican colleagues. Patel shifted slightly in his chair. The room's temperature seemed to drop suddenly. First strike, the Attorney General's confession. Whitehouse opened the first folder with surgical precision. Let's begin with your former boss, Attorney General Bill Barr, personally appointed by President Trump, a loyal conservative, a Republican name. He pulled out a document. Mr. Barr stated exactly this. This nominee has virtually no experience that would qualify him to serve at the highest level in the world's leading law enforcement institution. Patel's jaw tightened imperceptibly. Senator, I believe my record speaks for itself. I'm not finished. Whitehouse interjected. Mr. Barr continues politely but firmly. He would never command the respect needed to run the Bureau's operations. The words hung in the air like smoke from a fired gun. This wasn't a partisan attack. This was a professional assessment of Trump's own Attorney General. How do you respond to your former Attorney General's assessment that you lack the necessary experience and respect for this position? Whitehouse asked. Patel tried to recover. Senator, I respectfully disagree. Second strike. The CIA. Whitehouse continued seamlessly, opening the second folder without allowing Patel time to recover. Let's look at Director Gina Haspel. Again, a Trump appointee. Again, someone who worked directly with you. His voice remained calm, but his words were devastating. Director Haspel reportedly threatened to resign rather than serve under your command at the CIA. She found your appointment so problematic that she considered her distinguished career more important than working with you. The room fell into a deathly silence. Even Republican committee members looked uncomfortable. This wasn't Democratic opposition. This was Trump's own CIA director, choosing to resign rather than work with Patel. What does this say about your leadership abilities? Whitehouse pressed. When a professional who has spent her career in intelligence services considers ending her service preferable to working with you, Patel's face flushed. Sweat began to accumulate on his forehead. Senator, I was never officially appointed to that position. The threat of your appointment was enough to make her consider resignation. Whitehouse responded sharply. That shows serious concerns about your competence and judgment. Third strike. Bolton's shocking admission. Whitehouse opened the third folder. The biggest blow hadn't come yet. Now let's address National Security Advisor John Bolton. Again, a Trump appointee. Again, someone who worked directly with you. He raised another document. Mr. Bolton stated exactly this. I didn't think he was qualified. I was forced to hire him. Gasps of astonishment rose in the room. Being forced to hire him meant political pressure had overridden professional judgment. This was a devastating statement from within Trump's own administration. Mr. Bolton continues. Whitehouse said, his voice rising for emphasis. He characterized your ideas as ridiculous and said he was completely unqualified for the job. Patel looked as if he'd been punched in the stomach. His legal team behind him shuffled papers frantically, searching for talking points to counter the Trump administration's testimony. But there were none. Senator, Mr. Bolton and I had disagreements. He characterized you as completely unqualified. Whitehouse's voice cracked like a whip. This isn't a policy disagreement. This is a competence assessment. Fourth strike, the direct supervisor's condemnation. But Whitehouse wasn't finished. He opened the fourth and final folder. Finally, let's hear from your direct supervisor, Trump's deputy national security advisor. He paused for dramatic effect. This person worked with you every day. Directly observe your performance. Manage your work product. The room was silent as a grave. Every camera was focused on Whitehouse as he delivered the final blow. Your former supervisor stated exactly this. His ideas are absurd, completely unqualified for the job. He is unreliable, and it is a complete disgrace to even consider nominating such an individual. The silence that followed was deafening. Patel looked demolished, defeated. Four Trump administration officials, his own Republican colleagues, had systematically destroyed his reputation and qualifications. A complete disgrace, Whitehouse slowly repeated, letting each word sink in. These are not my words, Mr. Patel. These are not Democratic talking points. These are the professional assessments of four Trump administration officials who worked directly with you. The credibility question. Patel tried to provide an answer. Senator, these individuals may have met Mr. Patel. Whitehouse interrupted, now carrying the full weight of prosecutorial authority. For separate Trump appointees, your former Attorney General, your former CIA Director, your former National Security Advisor, your direct supervisor, all saying the same thing. You are unqualified. He leaned forward. In isolation, these could be personality conflicts. When they form a pattern, they signify professional incompetence. The question hung in the air like a sword over Patel's head. But Whitehouse wasn't finished yet. He pulled out another document. Let's discuss your credibility, a critical qualification for FBI director, because you'll need to testify under oath. Patel's face went pale. He sensed what was coming. A Colorado federal judge ruled based on your testimony in a case involving Trump, Whitehouse said, reading directly from court records. He stated, not a credible witness. His testimony is not only illogical, but completely devoid of any evidence in the record. It was devastating. A federal judge had determined that the FBI director nominee was unreliable under oath. How can the American people trust an FBI director whom a federal judge found to be an unreliable witness? Whitehouse asked. Patel desperately tried to explain. Senator, that case involved complex circumstances. Yes or no? Whitehouse interjected. Did a federal judge rule that your testimony was not credible? A pause. For seconds it felt like hours. The judge made that observation. Yes or no, Mr. Patel? Another pause. Patel's legal team looked on helplessly. The question was simple, but the answer was too heavy. Yes, Patel whispered. Whitehouse nodded. Thank you for your honesty, at least on this matter. The room erupted. The room virtually erupted. Republican senators looked on with shock and discomfort. Democratic senators appeared stunned by the systematic demolition. Reporters frantically typed notes. This wasn't partisan theater. This was a systematic dismantling using Republican evidence. But Whitehouse had one final blow to deliver. Mr. Patel, given that four Trump administration officials found you unqualified, unreliable, disgraceful, and a federal judge ruled that you were not credible under oath, why should the American people trust you to lead the nation's premier law enforcement agency? Patel sat in stunned silence. There were no talking points that could overcome his own party's appointee's testimony. There was no way to manipulate a federal judge's credibility ruling. Patel began to speak, then stopped. I believe in my service record. Your service record, Whitehouse interrupted, according to people who work directly with you, shows you are not suitable for this position. He gathered his papers. Mr. Chairman, I believe we have sufficient evidence to make an informed decision about this nomination. The hearing room was filled with tension. At exactly 3:18 p.m., Whitehouse's systematic demolition was complete, using only Republican testimony and federal court records. He had demolished Patel's qualifications, credibility, and suitability for the position. Within minutes, the hearing was trending on Twitter. Videos spread rapidly, not Democratic attacks, but Trump administration, insiders finding a former colleague unsuitable. CNN cut to breaking news. Breaking. 4 Trump officials called Patel unqualified, Senator Whitehouse. Fox News found themselves in an impossible position, defending their own nominee against The political impact was immediate and devastating. Republican senators who had planned to support Patel began voicing concerns and requesting additional information. Several called for postponement, delaying votes pending further review. Even conservative legal experts who had previously defended Patel weighed in with unprecedented criticism. When Bill Barr, John Bolton, and Gina Haspel all agree someone is unqualified, it transcends partisan politics, said a former Republican Justice Department official. Even Trump supporters found themselves unable to defend a nominee condemned by Trump's own appointees. Radio hosts struggled to explain why 4 officials loyal to Trump would lie about a colleague. The most damaging reaction came from law enforcement itself. The FBI Agents Association released a statement expressing serious concerns about leadership credibility and agency morale. With future employees questioning physical fitness, confirmation became nearly impossible. The inevitable end. 3 days later, facing inevitable defeat, Patel withdrew his nomination. In his letter to President Trump, he wrote, "The politicization of this process has made effective leadership impossible." But insiders knew the truth. This wasn't politicization. This was his own party's assessment of his inadequacy. Whitehouse had achieved something rare in modern Washington. He had demolished a nominee using friendly fire. No Democratic opposition research. No partisan attacks. Just 4 Republican officials telling the truth about someone they deemed unsuitable for office. The lesson was clear. When your party's insiders characterize you as completely unqualified, unreliable, and a complete disgrace, confirmation becomes impossible. Character matters. Competence matters. Credibility matters. Once lost, it cannot be restored through political loyalty alone. Sometimes the most devastating weapon isn't partisan opposition. It's the professional assessment of your own colleagues who work with you every day and found you lacking. Whitehouse had proven that incompetence transcends party lines and cannot hide behind political protection. When 4 Trump appointees destroy Trump's nominee, what happens? For minutes and 17 seconds, it changed everything. If you believe competence should matter more than loyalty in law enforcement, this story shows why Republican voices sometimes carry more weight than Democratic criticism. When the truth about public officials is revealed, what happens when the people you work with call you completely unqualified? Kash Patel now knows the answer.